Hey you guys, I'm Dana DTH. This is Beauty Manifested. This is a channel for storytelling, so it'll make sense if you subscribe, and that way you'll kind of get an understanding of my full story. If you just come on for this one video, it may not make sense to you, which is perfectly fine. However, just don't go leaving mean comments if you've only seen this one video, because my perspective may not make sense to you. But either way, I'm so happy that you're here. I love you guys, and I actually don't even know what I'm going to talk about today, so I guess I'm just going to talk about my life and the happenings. So lately I've been traveling. I spent about 6 weeks in Europe, Eurasia in September and October. And then I'm working on my posture. And then I spent 10 days in Nigeria in December. And next week I'm going to Punta Cana. In the midst of this, I've done a little bit of dating, not really a lot, just a little bit. I hate saying but you know, I've been going through a lot of things. I am a queen of transformation, actually. So a couple of videos ago, I was talking about astrology and how I have really been in my Bible lately. And however, although I don't worship astrology, astrology is not my God, anything like that. I am interested in astrology, and I use it as like a language to kind of talk about my life and the experiences I have. So recently I was listening to a video about Pluto and like the effect that Pluto can have on in your chart, and Pluto rules over like death and rebirth. And I've made other videos in the past talking about how I see myself as like the queen of transformation. Like, I am always transforming. I am a very growth-minded individual. Like, I like to grow. I like to dive deep. I like to be constantly improving. And a little bit of that is like the Virgo in me. I just want to be my best. I want to be optimizing and improving, and I can be a little nitpicky, and I just want to be better than I was before. So part of that is the Virgo in me, like the perfectionist. But also I have some heavy Pluto aspects in my chart, which I feel like has made me really comfortable with the process of death and rebirth. And the way that I'm talking about this is like death of a past self. And so because I'm very comfortable with this, I am able to change. So let me, like, this is just off the top of my mind. I actually didn't even know what I was going to talk about until I start talking. So, okay, when one of my very first transformations that I can think of, and I had other okay, I'm going to go back even further. Okay, the first transformation that I can think of right now would probably be like elementary school for me. It's been a lot. Like, I am a transforming person. But so when I went to preschool, and this is so funny, but I'm a very like intellectual, self-aware person, so I can remember a lot most of my life. Like, I have very early memories. So I went to preschool at Head Start in Detroit. I think it was probably downtown. I went to Head Start in Detroit, and it was mostly Black and Hispanic kids, and I had that experience. And then I grew up on, well, our home was on Joliet, but I grew up on Sussex because that's where my grandmother lived, and that's where we would spend a lot of time because that's where my cousins were. My grandma and my cousins, they all lived on Sussex and Joy Road. And so that's kind of like where I grew up. And so a lot of my early interactions were, of course, with Black people, my family, and then also like the kids who also grew up on Sussex and Joy Road. And so that was kind of like where I was assimilated to in my early upbringing. And then I went to school in Troy, Michigan. We bought a house in Troy, Michigan, and I went to elementary school there. And I don't remember kindergarten all that much. I remember I had a crush on a 5th grade boy. I thought he was so cute. He was a white boy. I remember I used to sit next to a Chinese boy on the bus. And there was all different kinds of people in my class, and I don't think I really thought that much of it. And in 1st grade, I think that's when I started noticing a bit more that, like, you know, these people are different than me. And then a Black boy, because before that, I don't think there were any other Black people. And so then a Black boy moved to my school when I was in 1st grade, and we fell madly in love. And it was a beautiful love affair. The reason I'm giving all this backstory is because my first transformation was assimilating to this new society, white culture, or even more than white culture, like suburban culture. Like I was going from one group of people where they had societal norms and things that would make you cool and things that made you trendy. And then now that I was in this new suburban environment, they had different societal norms that were considered cool and trendy and things of that nature. And so I had to go through my first ego death because the things that I thought were cool were no longer cool. And it was important for me at that time to assimilate because I've always been kind of like a social climber. And so I wanted to be at the top of the social hierarchy. And so that was going to require death. And so I underwent that. There was a lot of that involved. There's people who had to get cut off. Some of them were family members. Pretty much anyone who was not supporting me on this journey, anyone who didn't like this new version of me, my new speech habits, all of these things, they basically were kicked to the back. Like they had to go because that past version of me, she died. I wasn't her anymore. There's someone else who I wanted to be, and so I became that. And I was such a little girl then, but I was so strategic now that I look back. You know, I surrounded myself with people who I felt could teach me, people who helped me, people who put me in situations that expanded my perspective, and I learned everything I needed to know. I created a brand new personality and a brand new way of being, and I learned to thrive in that environment. So that was like the first transformation I can remember. And then another significant one later in life, there may have been more, but this one, I feel like it was years coming. So I learned I climbed the social ladder in the suburban world. And then somewhere along high school, I realized I did not like it there and I was ready to transform again. This for me was a more difficult transformation than the one before for some reason, because before I had moved from one place to another, and so I was no longer in the other environment that required me to be that. This time, I hadn't moved. I'm still in the environment that requires me to be the suburban version of myself. But I no longer wanted to be the suburban version of myself. And I was only a high school student, and so I didn't really have the power to move myself. So I was like, okay, what to do? And so I tried to transfer schools, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. I guess it wasn't meant to be. I tried to apply to an HBCU. I didn't get in. And so somehow I felt it wasn't meant to be. And so I went through a really weird, rebellious stage. At that point, I started going to a lot of places alone, like concerts and things alone. And that way I could express this new version of myself who wanted to be born without the pressure of these people who I felt like were still holding me to the old standard. So I started going off doing things alone. I started hanging out with different groups of people. I kind of went through like an emo phase where I was just being like real weird because I guess I felt like I wanted to set myself apart from these people, and I also wanted to set myself apart from the way that I used to be. Like I wanted to be like very different, which is funny because now I've gotten back to the way that I used to be a lot more, because that emo phase was definitely a phase. Like that wasn't authentic for me. It was just like I felt that I needed to express myself in some way because I wasn't able to change my environment. So then I get to college, I am able to change my environment, but I went to a school that was like very white, very small, very isolated, and I still felt like I wasn't able to be born the way that I wanted to be. And so a blessing came and I got the opportunity to move to Texas. I moved to Texas, and this is where the rebirth started. I cut off everybody. I started over. I started calling in people who I felt like were more aligned. I went through this was a very rocky phase. This began, like the rebirth, it began probably at like 14, 15 years old. At this point, I'm probably like 20, 21 years old, and I'm still kind of like going through it. I'm trying to figure out like, how am I going to become this woman who's trying to be born? So then I went through a phase where I was like vegan and a hippie and like doing all this stuff and starting gardens, and that was a lot more authentic to me. But I still didn't exactly have the right people in my life. I was surrounded by a lot of like artsy types, which is kind of me, but not really, because I'm like fiercely ambitious, driven, strong-willed. Like I'm pretty intense. I'm a social climber. I'm not the emo girl. I'm not the artsy girl. But I guess my part of my emo phase was still there, and so I didn't know how to go. And then I opened the business and I started kind of getting into like the entrepreneur world. And that was resonating a lot more. And so I went in that route, and then I start being exposed more to people who work in tech. And I really liked how they were like casual, it girls, strategists, give me my money, work hard, play hard. Like I was liking the vibe. So I was like, okay, I think this is direction that the new me wants to be in. Sold the business, and now I am still in this process of breaking into tech, but I can feel it happening. I can feel it happening, and I'm in a really good place. And one thing that I feel really aware of that I think makes it easier is that I'm not really afraid of uncertainty, and I'm not afraid of letting go of past versions of myself. This transformation has been a long time coming. I feel like I've been trying to like birth this version of myself since I was 15 years old, but I just didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what it would require. I didn't know what kind of people. I just didn't know. And technically, I still don't know. A wise man knows that he knows nothing at all. So I actually don't know. But now that I am even more self aware and I'm using astrology to understand myself and all of these things, I feel that I feel very comfortable in the unknown. I understand the process of transformation. I understand that these old versions of myself have to just die. Like, that's just not me anymore. It's not where I'm going. All I can focus on is the woman who I'm trying to become. And if along that journey I end up rerouting and deciding to become someone else, then that's all part of the journey. And each stage and each phase is significant and it's teaching me something. And so I feel very comfortable in that. And I feel empowered by that, and I feel excited by that. Like, I'm not someone who's afraid of change, and I think that really empowers me, and that's why I was called on the entrepreneur journey. Like, I will leap. I will leap headfirst into change. I'm not really risk averse. That comes from me being provided a lot of privilege from the family I was born into, and I'm someone who believes in a divine plan, so I do feel that God placed me into this very comfortable, secure, stable, supportive environment so that I could express myself as the risk-taking, impulsive, brave person that I am. And so I'm really excited about where I am in my life. I don't really know the purpose of sharing this, but I know, one, I do like to document my story for my own personal self, like for my own personal archive, so I can look back and kind of see how I've been evolving. And then also, if anyone is able to resonate with this, then definitely let me know in the comments. We can have dialogue, we can be accountability partners, we can support each other since we're on similar journeys. And maybe something I'm saying, like as I share my thought processes and how I go through these things, it'll inspire someone else who's feeling a little confused. And what I'll say about that is, if you are feeling a little confused, that's fine. I have to remind myself this all the time. Like, you're not supposed to know. I was in my Bible this morning and it was talking about love is patient and love is kind. The three things that you really need are faith, hope, and love, but love is the most important one. And part of having faith is just trusting that it's going to work out and trusting that God has his hand on you and his hand in your life. There's nothing really to worry or stress about. And even if there is, because I know some people are like having very heavy experiences right now, but the worrying doesn't really solve the issue, and so it's really just a waste of time or energy. I would say that when you are going through a heavy time, because I have heavy days too, you can either A, try to get into gratitude and then put your mind and your focus on something else. And all of this is going to sound probably a little privileged, but you can like put your focus on something else. Like say like, I don't know, like I'm longing for a partner. I go through that. That's also in my astrology chart. Like I like to be in partnership. I like to be in relationship. Relationships are really important to me, not just romantic relationships, but also friendships. Like sometimes if I feel like my friends aren't inviting me to like a lot of activities, I start to feel like, oh, people don't like me, and like I just have all these feelings. So sometimes I'll wake up and I'll feel like I'm not where I want to be in my life because I want to be a socialite and I want to be this and I want to be that, and people are not even inviting me places, and maybe people don't like me, and I start to have all these feelings. So at that place, I either redirect that energy into something productive, like okay, I'm just gonna clean my room, okay, I'm just gonna work out, okay, I'll go out to a happy hour, I'll go to a coffee shop, I'll do some studying, I'll do some work, like I'll just redirect the energy. Or sometimes I'll just sit in it, like I'll just be like, okay, like I'm feeling down today, like I'm just gonna go really easy on myself. I'm gonna take a nap, I'm gonna get a massage, I'm gonna take a bath, like, and just be really lazy and just sit in that energy. And I feel like both are valid, but just like ruminating on these negative feelings, it's not productive, and I don't really go down that path very far, and I don't allow myself. I have gotten a lot better at feeling my feelings, but like if I'm like, oh, like people don't like me because I never get invited to events, and this girl, she has events every day and I don't get invited to any events, and it's like I just get really logical. Like it makes no sense to be comparing my life to someone else and complaining that maybe people don't like me. Like, first of all, is that true? No. Second of all, even if it was, it's like, okay, well, what are you gonna do about it? Like, I can't just sit there and just be like upset for too long, because it's just not the way my mind works, and it just doesn't feel productive to me. Like for me, if it doesn't make sense, it just doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, I don't even really have the time or the patience or the empathy, I guess, to just sit and listen to people complain like too much. Like, you need to have solutions. Like my friends, I'm a very supportive person, and so what my friends can do is like work things out that have been like in their head to me out loud. Like they're like, yeah, but I really want to do this, but this hasn't worked out, so maybe I'll try this. And then and they're coming up with solutions, and they're just thinking out loud. I love that. But someone who just sits there and complains, like, I don't have the time or patience. Like, where are we going with this? Literally. Like, you can have a complaint, and immediately after the complaint has to be like a couple of solutions that you thought of, or a couple of new directions you might go in. Like, if you're just like, it doesn't even make sense. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I hope that you'll take something from this and that you'll have a beautiful day. If you made it this far in the video, just know that I love you so much. I'm praying for love and light over you, and my heart goes out to you. If you're in any type of struggle, confusion, or anything like that, just know that this too shall pass. Have a beautiful day.